Hello, and welcome back to another episode of How to Be Better Friends. Okay, so I'm Delisa.
I'm Olivia.
And in our first episode, we introduced you all to what we decided were the 5 keys to being better friends. In our last episode, we spoke about honesty. And in today's episode, we will be discussing quality time. Okay. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines... I've never had a Merriam-Webster dictionary, though. I just never had one physically. It's always been online. Okay, I'm done.
This was online. So I put .com.
Okay, so Merriam-Webster defines quality time as time spent giving all of one's attention to someone who is close, such as one's child. What do you think of that?
Or in our case, good friend.
What do you think of this?
I agree. And I think the important is all of one's attention. I do not think it is quality, unless you're both jointly watching a movie and you're both invested in watching the movie or that kind of thing. If one of you is talking and the other one is like texting on their phone, don't think that's quality time.
Yeah.
And especially if you all, but that goes kind of to honesty. Like you need to set that expectation, because someone might be like, I'm in your presence. Isn't that good enough? And they might genuinely think that. And someone else is like, well, we ain't talking. And you're not at that stage of like comfortable silence yet, where you can just, because you get to a certain level and it is for some people, well, we're just in each other's presence, and like that for me is filling enough. But a lot of times it's like we should have at least some time where we're interacting, we're engaged, we're talking, and we're talking to just each other. So I agree. And it doesn't have to be all the time, which is why when you can do it, I think that's better to be more intentional and like honed in. What do you think?
Completely agree. I think undivided attention is quite important. And it's funny, I think I learned about like giving undivided attention with my ex, really. And like my phone would always be going from time to time. So, and I found out
push
like
my phone to the side.
So I found that, like with WeChat, if you don't silence groups, it's constantly dinging. And it was so funny because at that time, I didn't know that you could actually like silence the groups. So it was constantly ding, 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 ding into the evening. Sometimes I would ignore it. I would put my phone on silent. But then a lot of times I would like just check to see what's there. And he would always complain, be like, I don't pick up my phone when I'm with you. Why are you answering your phone? Blah, 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 blah. That's not how he sounds, but that's how he, sounds in my head right now. That was the energy. So I had to like learn what that meant, like being present. So and that's, and it's fair. It's really important, and now that I'm in a new relationship, like, yeah, it's definitely got its benefits. I want his attention and he wants mine, and same when I'm with you, like, but a lot of our meetups or our dates are working dates. So we need our phones as well. So it just depends.
We're usually meeting to do something and we forget and we just talk.
And then we talk. So yeah, I rambled a bit, but totally agree with you. What can I say?
No, that was a good example. We're also busy. But we're all so busy and we're always just trying to do so many things. I guess, how do you make sure to have quality time? I guess that's the real thing. And what, in your opinion, is... I think I know what you're going to say,
okay.
but I'll let you say it.
Well, now the pressure's on, because if I don't say the thing you're thinking of, it's like, um, well, first of all, you said something which you were like, what's important to you and what's quality time for you? And I think identifying that with your friends is like first and foremost, really important, because what I might consider quality time, I might be happy with a phone call. Hell, like I have a few friends who I'm quite happy to keep in touch over the phone, even though we're in the same city. And be perfectly okay with a call, a text, and and just see you in 2 months, sort of situation. Do not do that.
You know how shady that sounds to me.
No, it doesn't.
But I know you don't. I know you don't mean it in a shady way. But if someone said to me like, a phone call is good enough, right? A phone call is good enough. I would be like, oh.
Like, okay.
And watch, someone's going to listen to this podcast and be like, she calls me, but I don't know the last time I saw her.
Like, okay, for example, I've got one of my really good friends here in Beijing, and we've been friends for years, right? We saw each other last December. And since then, we saw each other, was it last weekend? But it does not feel like, like we've lost anything. We've been in touch all year. We've been messaging. We've been catching up. We've had the calls and stuff. She's busy. So am I. Like, but there's never been that I need to see you, or I feel pressure to see, her. And it's so funny because back in the day, we used to hang out a lot. Like, we'd message each other, Back in the day, we both used to live in Haidian, right? And back then it was like, yo, it's Friday. It's been that kind of week. And it's like, all right, where are we meeting? Drinks and wings and whatever else, But then she's moved further away. And even though, like, we tried to make time for each other, we didn't feel that pressure of having to. But guarantee you, if I needed something, she was right there. And if she needed something, I was there. So, I think quality time, it just depends on you, it depends on your relationship, what your needs are, what that person's needs are. And one thing I've always taken comfort in knowing, because I know that you need quality time. And I actually took comfort knowing that, like, you would go out downtown and, like, you would, like, be out at dinners, or you're doing stuff or whatever, because that would take that pressure off. Like, okay, she's not alone, she's enjoying herself, I could sleep now.
I can't wait till we talk about our codependency episode.
It's not even to say like you needed it or whatever, but it's like, I think, it just took I don't know. It was comforting to know that when I'm not in the picture, you still had things going on. So I didn't feel as guilty leaving you alone. And in those moments, a phone call would do. I could call you after work, on my way home, check in, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to this event. And I'm like, awesome, gal. So, yeah. I don't even know if that answered your question, but I think quality time, you both need to express your needs, know what you want, know what you need, and then decide whether either of you can meet them. And if you can't, then you need to start setting up contingency plans.
Like, let me give her other friends because I can't be all the friend. That's what that sounded like. I might unpack that with you offline, but no, but the gist of what you're saying, I understand. This is why we had honesty as our first one, so that we understand and we're honest, that we love each other, we respect each other, and we care about each other.
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like we would do phone calls because you live in a part of Beijing that was just like it took an hour or like a bunch of money to get up there, and so it was like, ooh, and but to your credit, and I always felt a little bit bad because I was like, dang, she's been down here way more than I've been down up there. All right, like dang, so you would make your effort to come and see me and like to come and visit, or we would have our phone calls while you were coming home from work and like you were in the car, like you would call. And so definitely those things. And I just think also some of it I already figured out was just my own projection of like quality time equating to not self-worth, but like validation of that. And so one, just making sure that quality time is because I genuinely want to see this person, not because I'm feeling insecure about myself. And so not projecting quality time, the need for quality time on anything other than, wow, I miss being in this person's presence. Like, let me make an effort to be in this person's presence. Or to be in somebody's presence. But yeah, I did have to learn to just, get out there. But ironically, the best time that I had for quality time was when Beijing was on like the closures in April and May, or was it May and June? May and June, where like the schools were closed, you couldn't go to restaurants, you couldn't go to nightclubs, and so since a lot of us were teachers, like it was back to it felt like a crappier version of 2020, summer 2020. And so I went on a lot of bike rides, and like that was my quality time, was going on a lot of bike rides and just hanging out. We'd go to the river and we'd all like bring food or something. So that was what quality time became, is active quality time. It didn't always have to be, actually we were intentional about not making it all about eating and drinking. We were like, okay, it can't only be going to dinner. Like it can't only be going to get drinks. It gets expensive and it gets old. So what else can we do? So we would sit by the river, go for bike rides. Like some people come over and we cook together. So it'll be like different things that we could try to do, but to like make time for each other. I know I saw one thing about people. This definitely felt like a hashtag millennials kind of thing, but it was like, I need a friend who wants to do errands with me. Like, let's make that our quality time. Like, I need to go shopping. I need to do this. I need to do that. Like, I need an errands friend. And so what do you think about getting an errands friend?
Well, that leads us into, I think the verily.mag.com article you shared with me. And I think that was pretty good. So for people who are busy, basically, it's giving you different ideas of what you can do with your friends so you don't feel like you're wasting your time. So you're actually doing something productive while meeting up with them. And I feel like at some point in our relationship, we decided that we needed to do this as well. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. And if we didn't do it, I was definitely thinking about it. But it also reminds me of like, so where I live, like you were saying, it's not even that far. It's a drive, and it gets expensive to get into town. So usually if I'm gonna head downtown, let's say like was it yesterday? I had to go downtown. So I ticked off like 3 or 4 things on a list of things to do, so that when I went down there, I was actually doing things that were productive as well. As well as was able to catch up with a friend as well. So that was nice. And I think in this, it gave some pretty good ideas, like going to the laundromat together, or or setting up a meeting, like a hang up where you can, what's it called? You can go through your emails and stuff together. Clear out your inbox and stuff like that. And especially a lot of us, we're working online, at our jobs or whatever. Yeah. The email inboxes can get quite full. So I might book one of those dates with.
We didn't do these.
Someone. No, I'm saying we didn't do these.
We didn't do these. But what we would do is we would have some kind of meeting, because we work on different projects. Like we're doing the business boot camp for the businesses, or we're planning the gala, or even when you had an event and I didn't have an event. Like maybe like when you were doing the Black Music is Dope event and you came over to like run by songs. Like I think for me, with you, I hit that point where it's like, okay, being in her presence is cool because I know she's busy. So like whatever time we spend together doing whatever, that was always good for me. And I won't say good enough, because I don't want to say good enough, like, I'll take what I can get. But like truly it was like the intentionality of, I need to do this thing, because I know you also like to work alone, usually. So you're like, and so do I. And so for us to be like, I need to do this thing, but there's something about this person that doing this in their presence as someone who normally likes to work alone makes it even more fun. It's like a nice recognition. And so taking that and being like, all right, so cool. We'll just do that. I mean, my thing would be to just like cook. I remember one day I just like cooked for people. And I was in the mood to make breakfast. And I was like making brunch. I was like, hey, I'm making chicken and waffles. Anybody want to come over? And I had people just like, yeah, I'm going to come over. But to your credit, you became more spontaneous, because there were a few times where you're like, I'm downtown anyway. What are you doing? Because I think you also knew that I was usually down for the cause. And so you're like, you know what? I actually am feeling like, seeing people. I actually am feeling like grabbing a drink with Olivia. Okay, I'll reach out. And so you knowing I'm available and that I don't mind spontaneity, when you actually have those moments where you want it, you're like, okay, that is someone I could reach out to. And it's likely, if she's still single, it's likely that she's available. But it's likely that she's available. But if I'm not, I'll tell you. But you're like, oh, she's actually busy. Wow.
Then I call someone out and check.
You have other friends? Again, we'll save that for a codependency episode. When your friends have other friends, how to deal with it.
How to deal with it. But yeah, so I think we're always so busy and we get so caught up in the things that we have to do. And sometimes it's, it's really hard to like think, okay, I have to make time for this person. And then my thing is, how do I make time for this person and not feel guilty that I'm not doing the other things I'm supposed to do on my list? So I think becoming creative is definitely handy. And I wish I had seen this article when you were here, because I think this would have been hella interesting. But also, I mean, we started to exercise together. And I think that was mentioned in the article as well. We started jogging. There was one time.
Okay, we went jogging like 2 times. Like, let's not lie to the people and say that.
No, but so when it was the pandemic.
We did try.
Yeah, I mean, when you came over, we still did go, and it was something that we were both doing separately. So you came up to visit, and we went jogging. That's so true. It wasn't like, I'm not saying that it's something that we're doing all the time, but it was something that we did do.
That is true. We did.
Yeah, and that was us spending time together, but doing something that we were both trying to fit into our lives separately. And we just were like, let's try this out. We couldn't do it all the time just because we lived far away. Yeah, slap on the wrist for you. You know, it's not something we were able to sustain because we live far away from each other, work and all these other things. But it was nice.
That's true. I forgot about that. I usually black out my running times. Um, but yeah, we did go for a run.
Yeah, because you had someone else you used to go running with. But anyways. And when I used to go running, you used to be like, no, you can do that by yourself. No. Yeah. Like, I'm
and you know what?
running.
But it's funny because I'm gonna lean into the shady bit because it was funny because I had told him like I want to try running more, and so that's what I'm gonna do. And he's like, "Oh, I'll run with you." And so I was under the impression that he actually liked to run. Fast forward, I'm talking to him. I'm in America. He's still in China, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go for." He's like, oh, "I need to work out, but I don't want to go for a run." I'm like, "But we used to run all the time." He's like, "Chad, I only ran to hang out with you." I was like, "Wait."
See, that was so nice.
It was, and I was like, "Oh, that was so sweet." And like we would run, but we would also, when we were done running, we would walk back and we would talk and we would catch up on each other's lives and we would have all these conversations. But like that was like running, and so it was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go for a run." But that's also how we became much better friends, and like because we were spending like dedicated time. That was the other thing. Is like we tried to set aside. Okay, Tuesdays, 9 p.m. because we lived in a country where I could go running at night as a woman and not be scared. So Tuesday at 9 p.m. let's go for a run. And it's like, okay, yeah. And so I knew, like, I could mentally schedule. I scheduled my baking. I'm like, okay, I need to have stuff done so that when I go for a run, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, there's that intentional kind of time that we spent together. And I think that's probably why we also do projects together. It's partly for the project, and it's partly that we have an intentional reason to meet up. Because sometimes we do our business meetings and we catch up for like 2 hours. We don't even realize. We're like, oh yeah, so
that's topic.
Let's get to work.
The reason for this call was but yeah. All right, so how does spending quality time with someone make you a better friend?
This kind of leans into next week's topic, but you get to know someone when you spend time with them. Like, and I think the thing I really like about in-person time, especially way over text, but also over the phone, is you get to know their body cues and their body language. And so, especially, so I'm thinking about when we were learning Chinese. If you don't know Chinese, Chinese sounds hella aggressive. Like, because of the tones, it's a tonal language. And so some things just sound harsh to a non-tonal language speaker. But when I'm looking at someone and I hear like, "Ni ge ma," like, that just sounds weird. "Ni ge ma na." But if I see them smiling, "Ni ge ma na," it's like, oh, I can tell they're joking. I can tell, like, for those who don't know, like, "Ni ge ma na," I was like, "What are you doing?" So someone's like, "Well, what are you doing?" But they're smiling. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, you're making fun of me. But if I just hear it, no visual cues, no body language, I'm like, what did I do? I don't know. And I'm like in my head. And so it's learning the person, their likes, their dislikes, but also just learning how they are and just getting a sense for how do they move through the world and like how do they interact with other people. I don't know if I could be friends with someone who snaps at the waiters. Like, I know they say that about dates, but I don't know if I want to be friends with somebody who's like rude to service people, like stuff like that. And so it makes you a better friend because you're more aware of this person as an individual because you get to know them. Like, you get to see how they really move through the world. And you can make your adjustments. You can see if that works, it doesn't work, if there's something you want to raise or not raise. And so I always think in the beginning of getting to know someone in person is usually nice because you can also just catch the vibe better. Just catch the vibe of saying, like, does this person mesh with me? Do I mesh with them? Because you might not know that those jokes that you keep telling, this is definitely for me, are not landing. Like I remember there was one time early in our quarantining, you said something and I thought it sounded funny, and I made a remark about it, and I probably made one too many remarks. And had I not been in your presence, because you didn't say anything, but I saw you flinch, and I was like, oh, my jokes are not funny to her. I want this to work. I'm going to need to go ahead and change how I do that. But it wasn't something that you said. It was, I saw you react. And so, had it been on the phone, there might have just been silence that I didn't know, like, that you felt some kind of way about it. And I would have to wait until your tone changed later in the phone call to be like, what happened? And then it would be like, well, when you said, I did not appreciate that. But instead, I get real time feedback and I can adjust, especially for something that was a minor, like, oh, I say stupid stuff sometimes. Like, let me let me go ahead and adjust. So that makes me a better friend because I'm more responsive to how we're getting to know each other and how we vibe, how we mesh. What about you?
I think all of the above, everything that you said, you know, um, that's it. I think spending quality time with someone, I mean, you're in their presence, like you're saying, you're learning about them, you're learning about all the things that make them tick, but you're also building up experience for other relationships as well. So, whatever you're learning from this experience with this one person, you can either apply it or readjust for someone else. This person might be going through something and you're there with them, spending time with them, and you're learning a whole lot about whatever it is that they're experiencing. And it can make you more empathetic to other people. I mean, I'm thinking about the situation of like a boss and, their staff, and somebody who might be the boss, they might have a really close friend who's going through, something in their lives. And maybe something like that, what they've experienced with this person, what their friends experiencing, you know, they've seen a similar thing in their stuff. So, they might be more empathetic towards that person's experience, etc., etc., etc. So I think there are many, 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 many benefits to spending quality time with someone, a friend especially, and you grow um, from that. So yeah, if that makes sense.
And just to piggyback off of that, especially when you're talking about being more empathetic, and what we talked about last episode, that honesty is best when it's vulnerable. It carries more weight when it's vulnerable. It's like when I spend quality time with someone, I'm able to gauge better, like, is this someone I can share with? And you do those kind of small bids. Like this, I'd have to look it up, but there's a whole like relationship psychology about love, the bids for love, the bids for attention, and if they're being returned or not. And you can do those smaller, low risk bids in person when you're just sharing, like, oh, I'm sharing about my day. You can see how they react, and they can see how you react to them sharing about your day. And so you can inch into those deeper conversations. Or sometimes when you are spending quality time on the phone or otherwise, something could be sparked, and because you're already in that moment of communication with them, you're more likely to share it. Whereas if it was, oh, do I want to call them? Well, I don't want to disturb them, or I don't want to. Maybe they're doing something, but if you're already having this flow of being in communication, spending quality time with someone, it would make it easier to share those moments that might be of impact to you as well.
Going forward, there was also this video and article that you shared again. Thanks for all you've been doing, honey bunny. This time.com social support health benefits. So basically the article was so the article is basically looking at the health benefits of being social, being around and supported by friends and family. and it's shown much. Oh, I have the article in my other computer. But much benefits health-wise. For example, like they've shown that loneliness contributed to people smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, which is quite some. That's like half a pack, right? Something like that. But like, that's a lot of cigarettes. That's a lot of cigarettes in one day. So yeah, I think, and people live longer. There's a book I'm also reading. It's about marriage, and it actually talked about something like that, where they said, happy marriages, people tend to live longer, happier, more fulfilled lives when they're in a happy marriage. So having a good social network where you're communicating, you're out all the time, and you feel just supported, it definitely adds to your well-being overall. Because it's not just enough to, even if you're just exercising, you're sleeping right, you're eating right, like all those things is good, but the social aspect definitely.
Your social health. I like that. We always talk about mental health. We talk about physical health, overall wellness, but like your social health also matters. Because like that's the point. We call it quality time. Like people who you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel validated as a person. Like yeah, that definitely. I think it's always a trope. It's kind of a trope at this point, but it's still very true that we were created as social creatures, and so we are meant to be in community with one another and to experience life with other people and through other people's experiences. Because like there's things that I've learned in our conversations from like we have different life experiences, different backgrounds, and so learning how to see things from your perspective. And so when I'm approaching this, like you said, when I'm approaching someone new, well, you've taught me a different perspective, and so I can approach someone else with a more available view of the world instead of being very myopic, very like honed in on just my background and my understanding. And so I think that'll help build that community that is helpful to you. I think people who left China early, most people who I know who left China within a year felt disconnected, super disconnected. They felt like they didn't really have good friends. They felt like they didn't have people that they could turn to. Yeah, maybe they had people they could club with, but I don't know if they would consider those to be quality friends. Whereas a lot of us that do stay, we found our tribe, we found our people, our 3, 4, 5 people that are like our anchor points there. Because like when we think of the ups and downs of living at home, living in a different this political climate, all of that stuff, like it can really get you down. But I know whenever I was with y'all, like I was just like, okay, whatever, everything's fine. It's not fine, but it's fine. Like it's like okay, all these ups and downs brought me to these people, and I mean, like I already mentioned about laughter in the first episode, but like going through one of the most sorrowful periods and just having people who you knew you made quality time with people when you can sit in silence and it's awkward-ish, but it's not like, oh, I need to leave awkward. It's like, all right, we're just going to sit through this because it is what it is. And you've taken the time to build this rapport. Everyone that was there that day, I can think of the moments where like I spent good time with them, getting to know them over the last few years. And like, we've all built we built a small family. And that's one of the things I really loved about living abroad is you're forced to spend quality time or be alone. Like, because Beijing is a city of 22 million people. I mean, that's a lot of busy people. And so if you're not intentional about getting out of the house and getting in community, it will feel super lonely. And also you'll feel very isolated.
Yeah, I must say something as well, because I find like technology has definitely made people lazy, especially in Beijing. But foreigners as well. Like back in the day, I mean, when we first came to China, that was like what, 2010, yeah? Back then, you did not have WeChat. You didn't have all these facilities. You didn't have WeChat, you didn't have Meituan, you didn't have all these things for ordering stuff. So if you wanted to meet people, you had to go outside and actually do the old school thing of talking to people like, hey, where'd you get your hair done? Like, I remember specifically there was one girl, like, when we met, like, we literally met because I was like, where'd you go? Who does your hair? And I remember that till this day. um, but now everything's so convenient in Beijing, something we all love and we cherish dearly because boy, that is handy, especially in those winter months. But you don't get that opportunity unless it's at maybe an event to like go out and meet people. And even with that, at these events these days, a lot of people already have their clan and their cliques and whatever else. So you have to like try. But I think
that's definitely true.
Yeah, but I think during the pandemic, when you were with me here, I think that was when I realized how important it was to like have a circle, because thankfully where I lived, I had people, I had friends in different buildings in my compound, and every other night somebody was at our place, like coming over for dinner, or was there for breakfast, or was there to just hang out and play Pandemic, the game.
Did we ever win? I don't know if we ever won.
I can't remember if we I want to say yes, but we played it recently with some other friends and we won, which was nice. Yeah. And I had, my good friend who me and her, we would go, well, she hated running, but we would go walking in the mornings. And, another friend of mine, like, she was like, I need to lose weight too. Okay, we went walking in the evenings, So that was it was a nice little community that was there at that time. Unfortunate for some, but overall it was good. It was really nice, and I definitely felt blessed in that time. Yeah, I felt really blessed, and I even had friends that I lost during that time. But it didn't matter, it was like, okay, bye. I still got a whole bunch of people here that love me and cherish me and want to be around me and want to be my friend, and they're close by and we can do this. So yeah, fun times, good times. So
Actually,
I think
you
definitely
saying that reminded me of you saying that reminded me of actually why I did want to stay in my apartment, because I didn't have anyone around me. I didn't like where I lived. Like, where I lived was super small, so physically it was confining, and socially, I know there wasn't a way that I knew to connect with anyone because I wasn't as connected socially at that point, and so I was like, "Oh, if I stay here, it's going to be a mental health issue." So when you were
exactly.
like, "Yeah, I have an extra bed," and you're like, "Yeah, I have an extra bed. I have an extra bedroom," and I'm like, "Oh, can I stay?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." And it was funny because at that point, like, we knew each other, of course, but we weren't like super close.
Weren't that
we
close.
had always tried to get closer. And then it was like, well, when you pandemic quarantine with someone, like, yeah, you figure out. And so, like, going out grocery shopping with you, and like, we would do vision plannings together, and we would do our, like, what was it, Cook Like Queens, where like on a Friday night or something. We would do that every night, or it was Friday night.
It was a Friday night.
We would sit down with a Netflix. We watched Love Is Blind. And like, the original, not these last trash seasons. But we would watch it. But we made it, even though we had already been like roommates at that point, we made it intentional about like spending that time. But still, we also spent time with other people, because towards the end, I would start coming back down to the city more, and I would do like the workout groups, or I would meet up with other people. And so that also allowed us to kind of balance out so that we didn't completely become a codependent like entity. So there is balance to
But
it
it definitely
well.
helped with stress, managing of stress, that situation. Like I remember, like you were like still quite trying to decide whether to go home or stay, and I was like, "Why are you gonna go? You don't know what's on that plane." I was like, "And will your family forgive you if you bring something to their house?" I don't think so.
The way you're saying that now, I'm not sure if that was such an altruistic thought process. Knowing you the way I know you now, I think then I thought you were actually being altruistic. Now, in reflection and with hindsight,
Nope.
that was a very self-serving
I
process.
genuinely cared. Genuinely. Because I was like, there's no way I'd be jumping on the plane right now. So good luck with that one.
Well, I mean, and in the end, especially when that Beijinger article came out, in the end, that was why I stayed, was because it was like, yeah, you don't want to go home and be patient zero. And like at the time, Dad had already had a heart attack, and like so was like not as strong immuno-wise, and so I was like immunity-wise. So I was like, yeah, I really don't want to bring some unknown virus back to small town rural Georgia, and like possibly where like, and I say that because I don't know if they would have had at that time the medical capabilities to deal with the patient zero. Yeah, right, it was all very unknown, and so to have older parents who could be immunocompromised, I was like, let me just stay in Beijing. To which none of my family appreciated, but
I know you got a lot of fire for that.
Cussed out, but we got quality time, and now we're able to do this podcast, and so because had I left, I mean, seeing how people didn't come back, I probably wouldn't have come back, and you and I wouldn't have been able to become the friends that we've become. And so,
and I would have had
good, the bad, the ugly.
Best friend.
Probably. I mean, and I just would have made my mother my best friend. Charity is. She's one of my best friends, but there's things that she doesn't know.
Are we saying that?
Oh, yeah, she's fine with that. Because my mom's still very old school, so she'd be the first to be like, I'm your mother first, your friend second. And that's fair.
This brings us to the end of our segment. This was a very long one. We need to keep it short later. We tried. But who knows? Anyways, here's the end. Just a quick reflection. We spoke about quality time, what that looks like. We spoke about that having to be something that you and your friend decide what's important to both of you, either of you, and you come to that compromise. We also spoke about being busy and how you can become creative and bring your work to your friends. It could be housework. It could be working on yourself, your well-being. It could be emails that you have to like de-junk.
Could be meal prepping together.
Yeah, even that. Oh, and in the touching on that, the article actually spoke about cooking
dinner,
cooking dinner, and like one of you could cook for the week or something like that. And it was so funny because when I was at uni, one of my friends, Sarah, if you're listening, shout out to you, like in our first year, like we decided that we would alternate cooking, and it was like every other night. So I would cook today, she'd cook tomorrow, I'd cook the day after. And it was really, really good. And sometimes like other friends will come and join us to eat. And both of us, I must say, like we were pretty badass cooks, like in high school, because both of us had siblings, and like I grew up in that family whereby your mom comes home at 6 o'clock. If there's not even a pot of rice on the stovetop, it's like, why are you even breathing? And so did she. But yeah, so that was something as well that we used to do, because like especially at uni, like Ain't nobody trying to like spend all their money on takeout. So
True.
being able to cook was definitely a benefit, and a time saver, and a quality time spender. So that was nice. Yeah, and we spoke about the health benefits of being social and getting out there and being surrounded by family and friends, and it's super important. So, what did you say? It's social well-being,
Yeah.
social health.
Yeah, I think we should coin that social health. And why
Social
then
health.
at the end of the day, being a better friend is good for you. It's good for the other person. It's also good for the larger society, like you said, being more empathetic. One of the beautiful things that, especially the more we do this podcast, but it's like you and I are super different in a lot of ways. But the key thing that we are the same about is wanting to be good friends to each other and being intentional about that. And, you know, there's trial and error along the way, but being friends with you has taught me how to be better friends and a better citizen in the world because I'm getting outside of myself. I'm getting outside of my more myopic viewpoint. And so I think that for me was the biggest highlight of like what quality time does. It expands how you're able to relate to the world. And when you're better able to relate, you're better connected. And apparently it's also good for your health. And yeah, I really enjoy that. So thank you, Delisa, for spending this quality hour with me as we do this podcast and we keep learning about each other and sharing stories. And thank you to our hashtag besties. Y'all drop a comment if you hate that I say hashtag a lot. That's fine. Trying to be
Do
the
you
cool
feel
auntie.
like you do?
I feel like I do. I'm very self-conscious every time I say hashtag self-conscious. But but to our besties, drop a line about your favorite kind of quirky way to spend quality time with your friend and how you all make it work. Let us know. Send us a DM, send us a message, leave us a review. And so make sure you like, subscribe, and drop us a review. And we will see you in the next episode as we all keep learning how to be better friends.
See you later.